Podcasting is more than just talking. It's listening. BSing with Bob Schmidt.
The BS with Bob Schmidt podcast, talking entrepreneurship, business, and marketing. My guest this time is a gentleman that I spoke with a while back when he came out with a new book called The 5-Day Weekend. It's author, contributor to CNBC, Fox News, and ABC, entrepreneur as well. My guest this week is Garrett Gunderson. Garrett, thanks for being on with me this week. You're the CEO of the Wealth Factory and wealthfactory.com. What exactly is the Wealth Factory?
Wealth Factory is a firm that's designed to help people get their financial house in order, create economic independence, where they have enough cash flow to cover their basic expenses within 3 to 7 years. And then we help them, if they're a business owner, grow their business and then establish and create the right structure to have a legacy that they live and leave behind. So we take with the really high-end firms that help people with $50 million or more, like the New York-based family offices, and bring that to the rest of the world that normally doesn't have access to that, because we've built a really comprehensive team, give everyone a second opinion on what they're doing. If their existing team's doing a good job, they get a stamp of approval. If something's missing, we can actually implement it and support them. So that's Wealth Factory.
So, Garrett, do you believe that everybody could be and can be rich or wealthy?
I think it depends on the definition of what rich is or wealthy. So let me make a distinction between the two. The word rich to me means you have a boatload of money. And I guess it's different based upon the perspectives that people have. Where wealthy to me comes with 5 categories. One is, yes, you have your money right and it's in order. It's no longer your primary reason or excuse why you would do or not do something on a daily basis. It's your purpose and making sure that you're living something that you enjoy, that you look forward to, that calls you. Third thing is your mindset, having a wealthy mindset, meaning that you're more in abundance than scarcity. You think more about innovation and ingenuity and problem solving rather than scarcity, which is usually just fear, doubt, and worry. Physical health, that's part of being wealthy, because there's I think it's an African proverb out there that says, a man with his health has 1,000 dreams. A man without has but one, right? Trying to get their health back. So, and then the last part is social, like relaxation, rejuvenation, recreation. So, finance, purpose, mindset, physical health, and social well-being. To me, that's being wealthy if you have harmony in those 5 areas or depth in those 5 areas. I don't think everyone can be rich based upon the current structures. There's some people that are just born into third world countries and tough circumstances, and they're not going to be multimillionaires unless they somehow get out of that environment. There just isn't the circulation and the money. I think if people are in America, they have a much, much higher likelihood of that. But, whether that's what they want or not, I don't know. So I believe everybody has a chance to be wealthy. I think only those that really want to be rich I have a sister that's a teacher. She's never going to be completely financially rich, although she created a really successful blog, and it kind of gave her this additional, revenue and income. But I definitely consider her wealthy because she loves to teach. She's like one of the most happy, people that I know. She's lost 100 pounds in the last 5 years and really fit. And, they're always doing fun stuff, her and her husband. So I consider her really wealthy. Will she ever be a multi-millionaire? I don't think so. But if she chose to change her profession, she definitely could. So I just want to be really candid about that rich versus wealthy is different, and not everyone is going to be financially, rich.
And I don't think everybody wants to be financially wealthy either. Listening to that and listening to what you said about your sister, I believe that a lot of people are probably in that boat, that they love what they do and they want to continue on the path that they're doing. But I believe that everybody's probably 1 or 2 steps away from total devastation. If somebody gets sick, they lose their job, the list goes on, and they basically, I think what we want to do, Garrett, is to set ourselves up so that way we don't have to worry about those, those little things that may be the blip in the road that may derail us from our dreams.
Right. And I think that that's a big part of the issue is, I think that it would be best if people just started emphasizing safety and security and liquidity. And no matter where someone is, I feel like there's 4 main areas where they can keep more of what they make and build up some of that safety, because you're right. Most people are, they couldn't scramble up $1,000 in the next 30 days, according to one of the articles I read on MSN, which is pretty frightening. So what can they do about it? Number one, if they can save tax. So if you're a business owner, you have a lot of ways to save tax. If you're not a business owner, you have a few ways you could save tax. And one of the ways is if you're ever getting money back as a tax refund, you change your exemptions rather than giving an interest-free loan to the government. The second thing is we can save on interest. So the first is IRS, the second is interest. The best way to save on interest is if you have any really high interest rate loans, you renegotiate them. All loans are negotiable. You know, you could also go in and pay them off if you have other underperforming assets like a certificate of deposit or even borrowing from a retirement plan to pay off higher interest rate loans. That's going to improve cash flow. That's going to give you a little bit more buffer. You know, the third thing is if you have investments, there's a lot of fees and expenses associated with investments. And I say that it's important to pay off higher interest rate loans and build 6 months of liquidity before fully funding your investments, because in case something happens, I think we're all in store for financial surprises. It would be good to address and have some staying power when those financial surprises happen. So building a peace of mind fund. Some people call it emergency fund. I call it peace of mind because we feel better when we have that money there, knowing if something happens with our health or a family member or an unexpected financial surprise, we've got some resources to handle it. And the fourth I is insurance. A lot of people have duplicate coverages and improper structure. And if they just raise their deductibles, or they get multi-policy discounts by going with the same companies, or they learn about excess liability coverage and add that to their car and home, and then they can lower other coverages on their car and home and do this more efficiently. The bottom line is that ends up putting money in their pocket without having to budget or scrimp or sacrifice. So I want people to automatically save, pay themselves first, and find out places they're inefficient so they can bring that money back into their life. And I think that it creates a lot more stability, and then they can think more productively. Then they can start considering, how can I make more money? In what ways can I get a raise? In what ways can I add more value to the firm that I'm at? How can I start a side hustle or some type of business that I can earn more money with? Like, that becomes a different conversation when our basic things are handled. If we just went to the Maslow hierarchy of needs, right? We just get that first baseline handled, and everything becomes more possible.
You know, you'd mentioned something. You'd mentioned the 6 months of liquidity available to a person. A lot of people say 3 months. Why do you say 6?
3 months is great. 3 months is great as a starting point. But what I know is that that's not going to take care of all the financial surprises. That's not going to be enough. Like, here's the first example. Most insurance policies for disability kick in after 3 months. But if you had 6 months set aside, you could have that policy kick in after 6 months, and you can save insurance premiums. That's money into your pocket. You could raise your deductibles even higher. So I'm not just thinking about how much you have set aside to handle surprises. I'm also finding ways that you can save money with other things when you have enough cash set there. And when you have more than 3 months, you also have a little bit of an opportunity fund. You've got some cash in case the right opportunities come up. And if you ever had to get out of a bad situation with a job or start a business, 3 months isn't enough runway. 6 months is required. As a matter of fact, you know, the people that are in the best position have 2 years. 2 years means you can handle almost any economy change. I mean, you can handle major health issues, major family problems, but it's really hard to get to 2 years for most people. 6 months, I'm actually giving the other 3 months to people by finding the 4 main areas where they can find and recover money, and so they're not having to budget to get there.
Garrett Gunderson joining us from thewealthfactory.com. So let me ask you this. How do you get into that mindset so that way you're ready, set, and able to start going at this once you make this plan and decide that this is the way you want to go?
I think that finance can be intimidating sometimes because there's a lot of jargon. There's a lot of, there's just a lot of like people that don't want to look at where they're actually at, and they just think, I'll just work harder and hopefully it's all working out. But I think that if you start today at just confronting this and looking at it, it's the best time to do it because money's a lifestyle. I mean, we all use money in the economy. So it isn't something that we had a roadmap or a manual for, and there's a lot of different information out there. And that different information, fine, once you got 6 months liquidity, once you found ways to be more efficient, once you're paying yourself first, then you can start investigating all the complexities of money. But we just want to start simple. And it's progress over perfection. Done is better than perfect. So, I don't want anyone beating themselves up like, I don't have 6 months. That's okay. You can just start with something. Take a percentage of every paycheck that comes in, set up a separate account. I call it a wealth capture account. It could be at the same bank. It could be a checking, savings, or money market, but just take a percentage of that and have it automatically swept over into this other account, automatically deposited so that you're starting to build it without having to think about it. And then just look and be mindful about your cash management. You have 4 types of expenses. You have one that you want to manage, one that you want to eliminate, one that you want to increase, and one that you need to address. So what are those? The first one that you want to manage is your lifestyle expenses. Just don't borrow to buy something. When you borrow to buy something that doesn't create cash flow or isn't a long-term asset, you put yourself into debt. So just pay cash for your lifestyle. The second thing is the thing to increase is productive expenses. It could be increasing skill set. It could be increasing financial IQ. It could be doing things that are going to get you paid more in the job that you have. Like, where can you make an investment into yourself that it's a productive expense? Business owners could do it by hiring the right employee or putting money into marketing, right? Or building the right infrastructure. The next type of expense is where most people neglect. It's a protective expense. It's having your basic insurances handled to transfer your risk. It's having that 6 months of liquidity so you've got that staying power. It's having basic estate planning so that you have a plan for what happens to your heirs with the money that you have, so it's not fought over, or it's not excessively taxed, or it's not held, it's not exposed to liability. And then finally, the ones to eliminate are destructive expenses. Destructive expenses are borrowing to consume. It's doing things that don't serve us or lead us to a better situation. And, destructive expenses could be recurring things that are showing up on our expense statement that we're not utilizing, but we're not mindful of. So I say mindful cash management because it's not like you have to, micromanage this or budget on a daily basis, but looking at it weekly or monthly to say, hey, did I pay myself first? And with the rest of the money, did I make sure to live within my means? And living within your means doesn't mean cutting back. It may mean expanding your means and investing in yourself. It might be being more efficient in your means and finding that money and bring it back into your life. Bob, I'm sorry. I'm like going off on these long answers. Hopefully it's okay. I'm not even giving you a chance to interject. I apologize.
Garrett, that's all right. That's the show's about you. Basically, when I do a podcast, I try to make my guest be the star of the show. People can listen to me talk anytime they want. So you mentioned a couple of things. You mentioned the cash for your lifestyle. I agree with that. I think that far too many people are using the plastic and stuff for paying for their lifestyle. How do you get somebody on track to start thinking that way, to start using cash rather than pulling out plastic every time?
There's a few ways to do it. One is they hit rock bottom and they declare bankruptcy. And some people, unfortunately, that's just the only way that they could learn to do it, right? The second way would be that you actually create a little account, a third account called a living wealthy account. And every time you're paying yourself first, and every time that you're kind of staying on track, you deposit some money in there, I'd say 3% of your overall income, that you can spend on whatever you want, so it's not feeling like a diet where you're never getting to enjoy the money that you're earning. And I think some of the reason why people go back to the habit of just borrowing is because when they have a tough day, when they have a tough week, when they have a tough month, it's like, I need to reward myself. I've been working so hard, and I have nothing to show for it. And so a lot of times they'll go spend that money. But part of it is because they lacked an infrastructure. So, I don't think that we have to budget to do this. It's just simply like when I really wanted to get on track a long time ago and it was tough, I just didn't take plastic with me anywhere I went, and I didn't have it set up automatically anywhere. So if you're in kind of that train wreck type of position right now, I'm actually not the expert on it. I think Dave Ramsey is. Dave Ramsey is the best at helping train wrecks get on track. Meaning like you're spending way too much. You're spending way more than you earn. He deals with like some basic things that you can do. Now, I don't think you need to stay there forever and always live off rice and beans. Once you get that under control, that's when life gets exciting, where you can start thinking about producing and delivering more value and earning more money and enjoying life along the way and increasing quality of life. But it's not a good quality of life when you put yourself at risk and you're headed towards a path of destruction, because it's only temporary helping. And then long-term, it's creating massive stress and financial decimation.
I like that you kind of said put that 3% away for mad money. You also mentioned marketing money. So I know that a lot of small business people listen to a lot of podcasts trying to get better, trying to improve their bottom line. What kind of a budget or how much would you suggest a small business to put toward their marketing?
So we don't have a budget in our firm for marketing. What we do is when it's working, we keep putting in more money. until we hit either capacity in the firm or until it isn't working as effectively. And then we might scale it back, adjust it, and go back. One of the concerns I have with having too much of a marketing budget is people will allocate that money every month, whether it's working or not. And it might be either restrictive, that they could have actually invested more, or it's not being measured well enough because they're just automatically putting it out there. So I've seen firms where they're putting up to like 22, 23% of their marketing, but we also have to define marketing. I feel like customer service is the new marketing. Good customer service might be the very best marketing that every single organization has, but many of them neglect. So that might be considered part of that budget, not just, Facebook ads or direct mail, depending on the type of company that we're talking about, or, other ways that people market. But I always look at it as a productive expense. When we get to a point where the leads generated aren't the right people, then we might scale back on the marketing dollars, or we might go film a new video and do something more high end because it's going to get the price of marketing down. So it's like any other investment. Sure, if you're just starting out, having a percentage that you start with, that's good, but you want to consistently adjust and course correct. And if it's working, increase it. If it's not, decrease or stop it and regroup and regather and then re-strategize.
Garrett Gunderson, my guest. The reason that we first talked about 6 months ago was for your new book at the time, your 5-day weekend. I know that a lot of people probably have read 4-Hour Work Week. I like the 4-Hour Work Week tied up with the 5-day weekend. Is that really truly a possibility to kind of do them both?
So the way that 5-day weekend outlines everything is, here, let's create a financial structure that covers your lifestyle expenses. That if you didn't go to work, you had your basics handled. You had assets creating cash flow for you. You maybe even had a business that was creating cash flow for you, depending on the type of person you are. And when that cash flow is coming in, even if you don't show up to the office, okay, that's economic independence. Once you're there, now you could say, okay, I got to take 2 days to monitor that, to maintain it, and manage it. Okay, but then you have 5 days to choose what you want to do. You may choose to do more than you were doing before because you're not doing it just in the name of a paycheck. You're not doing it just to scramble to make ends meet. So you have more choice, more freedom, more purpose behind it. So maybe someone feels like they've always had a book that they want to write. Maybe someone else has always wanted to, work on their skills and start offering them somewhere on different websites that are out there, like especially with today when we've got so many sites for graphic artists, or we've got so many sites for artists in general that didn't exist before. So it means that those other 5 days, you're not necessarily sitting on the beach. You may choose some of the time to do that. It's really just that you get to choose and pick what you really want in life without the stress and pressure of providing for your family or yourself or making ends meet or paying bills. So I believe that's possible for everyone within 10 years, but it's a matter of whether you're committed to get there. Because there's no doubt it's a hard, easy path versus an easy, hard. It's easy just to get up and go through the routine and do what we're normally doing. It's hard to actually take the extra time in the morning to really consider what we want, to create a clear vision for it, to address our finances, to create cash flow with our investments. Like that just takes, obviously going through the book and then really figuring out what kind of investor we are and what ways we can create that cash flow. People have done it sooner than 3 years with very little resource, but they're also the madmen that spend 20 hours a week in addition to what they were doing. And so it depends on what level you want to really engage at this. If you want to do it over 10 years, it's something that you can do a little bit on a daily basis without completely disrupting your life.
So it all boils down, or is basically cash flow in order to enjoy your 5-day weekend?
Yep, because if we don't have that cash flow coming in, a recurring revenue, then each day we're kind of enslaved to making ends meet, paying the bills, handling expenses.
So do you think that far too many people are not enjoying their work lives because they're constantly, working for the man, trying to put away a couple of dollars in order to, pay for Netflix this month and to go out to dinner next month and maybe grab a beer or two with a buddy?
Well, the articles that are out on it are somewhere between 65 and 72% dissatisfaction or disengagement rate, depending on what statistics we're looking at of people in the workforce. They're either totally disengaged, only doing it because they have to, or they're just dissatisfied because they're not doing what they really want to do. That is a majority of the population right now. So when you think about that, that wears on you from a health standpoint, from a energy standpoint, from a, level of satisfaction and happiness standpoint. And a lot of people just feel trapped. So how do they get unstuck and untrapped? It's the methodology of the 5-day weekend of A, let's keep more of what you make. B, let's show you how to make more money with what you're doing, and how to create other opportunities to get income, because we're in this amazing sharing economy and value economy where it's never been easier to make money with side projects than ever before. And then third, how do you grow the money that you now have earned? How do you invest it properly? So that's the framework. Once people understand that right now, most people are just scrimping and budgeting, setting money aside, waiting for 30 years, hoping compound interest will save them. Compound interest is a slow animal riddled with risk, and the path is quite bumpy. So it's a different mindset that allows people through a different mindset and methodology to have a lot more earlier.
I look at it this way. Life's too short. You got to, grab life by the horns and just go. Because we've all had friends or family members that have passed on too early in life, and they had that dream or that, that carrot that was dangling in front of them. Man, grab that carrot and run. Go.
Yep.
Do what it takes. So, Garrett, what kind of commitment does it take to become a successful entrepreneur for the long haul? Not just short term, but let's make this thing run for, let's let that run forever.
Well, my buddy Rich Christensen, who wrote a few business books, including Zigzag Principle, said, cash flow is what's so difficult in starting a business. And he said he would dance in a pink tutu in the middle of the street if that's what it took to get the lift off of the business. So there's no doubt that being an entrepreneur requires a massive amount of effort up front and work, mainly because you might not be able to afford another employee. So you're the head janitor, you're the head customer service, the head coach, the operations manager. You're kind of wearing a bunch of hats, and it's probably going to take more time than a full-time job. And then you have to also learn different skills as you start to become more profitable, of proper delegation, empowerment, building the right culture, having hiring practices, dealing with difficult situations. So it's not an easy thing to be an entrepreneur, and I don't think everyone's fit for it. I think everyone's at least fit to be an intrapreneur, meaning how can they create unlimited upside in an organization they work for when they know how they relate and directly impact the bottom line and get paid for the upside they contribute to the firm, at least some type of percentage. For an entrepreneur, can you handle a variance in income? Some people just want that stability and security, and that would never be the right thing for them to do. So, I mean, it's awesome if you're doing something that you really enjoy and a skill set that's truly valued out in the marketplace, and you're willing to collaborate, coordinate, learn lessons, take harsh feedback. I feel like I've had to have relatively thick skin to get there, but I'm really happy that I did the entrepreneurial route, and it was against my family's wishes, which made it even more complicated and difficult. They now embrace it and support it at the highest level. But my grandpa, my mom and dad, that just seemed like a risky venture,
Right. Well, you had mentioned entrepreneur and people working for the corporate monkey. A lot of times, you're doing the extra work, and you said celebrating the upside with bonuses and whatnot. There's a lot of businesses out there, Garrett, that aren't paying that bonus. You save the company a bottom line, you save them some dollars, you make them more money, and just the guy in the leather chair gets the bonus. The guys that are actually doing the work don't. How do you change that?
Well, there's two things. One is you have to learn how to have the conversation that you get to participate in the contribution. And if you know how to frame it and have the conversation, most people are going to be open to it. If it's an organization that's not open to it, the time and effort economy is dead. It should be a production economy. But most people aren't being compensated on their production. They're being compensated on their time and effort. It's a misalignment. So everyone in our firm at Wealth Factory, they have percentages that they get when they contribute in certain ways, whether it's an event manager that runs events, whether it's my chief of staff that's booking, things for me. And as it gets booked, they get paid on a percentage of what happens there. When people get that, now they know what they can do to contribute and make more money, which means they're going to be even more productive in the organization. If an organization is so antiquated that they won't listen to it, you've really got to have that 6 months of expenses set aside, because it might be time to move on in order to move up. And so that is going to happen with some thinking, and you've got to be willing to make that change. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in an antiquated model that isn't going to reward you for your production.
You mentioned the gig economy and the entrepreneur spirit. What do you think is the next big entrepreneur push that's going to be out there?
The big entrepreneur push right now is you just see that everybody is moving to this independent contractor structure. So almost everyone that has a full-time job has a part-time business. And so it's becoming even more embraced. But as we start to see technology advance and we see hopes of artificial intelligence, I really feel like we're going to see a whole different entrepreneurial revolution around creativity, connection, and adaptability. Because some of the jobs that were jobs of the present right now are soon going to be relics of the past. But there's going to be more necessary human connection as we move into the next piece. And so we're going to see a more service-based industry that arises in the entrepreneurial communities so that people don't feel alone, so that people feel that they've got someone that they can relate to, connect with, and learn from. And I feel like that we're in the next generation, we have a lot more distrust on universities and standard education, and a lot more people that are looking at alternative ways to have education, which can include everything from masterminds to, courses that are run by private organizations and entrepreneurs. And, so I really think that in the changing times, there's going to be so much requirement for human connection and support and counseling and mentorship. And I really feel like that's going to be on the rise.
What do you think of podcasts? I mean, because you'd mentioned, different ways of education. I honestly find that the people that I get a chance to interview through my podcasts help me out a lot, and I'm assuming the people that listen as well, that's why they keep coming back. Do you believe that that this is kind of the new way or fun way to learn?
Yeah. Well, what it makes it so portable and easy to listen to a podcast. And so what I'm seeing is it's becoming more and more popular because people get deeper. People get more connected to someone. Like even if there's commercials, it's not like radio where there's commercial breaks constantly. And it's being heavily produced and it's being heavily influenced by market data. A podcast is way more creative and way more connected. So I think we're seeing a major rise with them, and we'll continue to see that trend.
Well, raw and unfiltered, that's kind of the way that they work. We talked a little bit about the 5-day weekend, and you're a co-author of that. It's Freedom to Make Your Life and Work Rich with Purpose. Before we started the interview, you mentioned that you've got a new book that you're working on. Care to spill the beans on that at all?
It's called Win Then Play, and I recognize that the methodology I've been using since late 2006, and I only talked to a few of our clients that happen to work with us one-on-one, is something that makes sense to get out to the world, because so many people are absolutely in this playing not to lose mentality of scarcity. So where diversification rules, where they're just, they're scared. And then there's a lot of people that play to win, but at what cost? At the cost of their health, at the cost of their family, where they just feel like they'll do whatever it takes, but they're not even sure if it's a game worth winning because they're adopting society's definition of success. Win Then Play is how you get paid up front, how you figure out the more precious forms of resources that drive all of financial capital, and where quality of life takes the number one priority in consideration, so success is on your terms, not someone else's. So Win Then Play, I'm really excited about it because, yes, it has some money pieces, but it has some business pieces, but the business pieces are, how do you make money with your idea before you spend a single penny? And there's so many examples in society. I mean, I just think that some people think that the wealthy, did they just work harder? No, they had a different methodology, and it's been fairly invisible to people. So I'm ready to release this methodology and share it with people so they can have a lot more success, a lot less risk, and enjoy life more along the way.
We should talk about that once it comes out. So should success be had at any cost, Garrett?
No, because it's no longer success if it's at any cost. You may accomplish a goal at any cost, but it won't be success. Like I just spoke in Charlotte this week, and while I was there, a guy came up to me and says, "I've checked off all the boxes of success. I'm not happy." Right? Climbed the corporate ladder, has a lot of money in the bank, has kids, has a house, has all the stuff, but doesn't feel fulfilled. So he got there at whatever cost. The cost was his own happiness, which I wouldn't consider success. So it's got to be a game worth winning, and you got to consider if the juice is worth the squeeze.
Garrett,
and I think we have to be flexible with our time frame.
a little leeway or a lot of
Not
leeway?
big time.
Okay.
A little leeway, and stay fully engaged, but don't be so attached, because we usually overestimate what we can do in short periods of time and underestimate long periods of time. So the key is, we have accountability and some leeway that things will have bumps in the road, we'll have lessons, we'll have to learn from mistakes. But if it's a game worth winning, we'll keep playing the game.
Tell me a time when you celebrated failure.
I spoke at this event back in 2009, and we went a little bit long, so we didn't get to offer the course that we had been considering developing. I celebrated that we didn't develop the course ahead of time, because even though it didn't work out that night, at least we didn't spend 60 hours of our life trying to do that. So I think that was a celebrated failure.
Do you think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs and business people overlook, is the joys of failure? Not the joys of, but the benefit and the windfall of a failure?
I feel like the thing that bonds entrepreneurs to each other more than anything is the scars, more than the successes. And so I think that sometimes we're hard on ourselves, and we might not be good at celebrating the wins, but if you're in the right group, it's those failures where you learn the biggest lessons from each other and where you feel the most human connected. So I think that as we get more mature and learn more lessons, it becomes more valuable. The younger we are, the more painful it can feel.
Garrett Gunderson, my guest. Wealth Factory, the name of his business, wealthfactory.com. Garrett, how do we find out more information about the stuff that you've written, the book that you've got in the hopper, and all the other stuff that is Garrett Gunderson?
Well, wealthfactory.com/podcast has amazing resources, including downloads of my book at no charge. So it gives you great resources where we can build relationships by improving your financial life. And who knows, maybe we'll be the right firm to help you out. But the bottom line is, I want to impact you more than just the 30 minutes that we talked today. And if you want a copy of my What Would the Rockefellers Do book, you can text 801-503-9667 and put WWRD in the subject line, and I'll send you a download of it right away.
The BS with Bob Schmidt podcast is brought to you by Orange Computer. Find them online at orangecomputerlax.com. And by Tri-State Sound and Light. Find them online at tristatesound.com. Tell your story with microcasts by podcastforhire.com. The BS with Bob Schmidt podcast is a Podcast for Hire production.